What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back, and as always, thank you for joining me. My name is Paul Brettel. Today we're going to discuss Packers 49ers, specifically Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker position, Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers, and then some situational football, a routine topic here as the Packers try to improve in that area. But first, hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. You can find all my work over at ESPNlacrosse.com for my Wisconsin sports fans, Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers. Download the 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse app for all your Wisconsin sports radio needs. You can find me on Sports Lead Monday through Friday from 3 to 6. So like I said, let's start with Edgerrin Cooper, Packers linebacker position, going against Christian McCaffrey. Cooper suffered a hamstring injury during Wednesday's practice, did not practice Thursday and Friday. He's already been ruled out for this game, and it's a really big playmaking presence at that position for the Packers that they're now going to be without. And this is a 49ers offense that does an excellent job of really stressing the linebacker position. So let's start with Cooper. Again, he's brought a playmaking presence to this position. Not to say that there haven't been ups and downs. There absolutely have been. And unfortunately, injuries have been a part of his early career here with the Packers. During training camp, he suffered an injury, forced him to miss all 3 preseason games through the first or early portion of the season. Even if he was playing on Sundays, he was, a limited participant in a number of practices. And for a young player, a rookie making the jump from college to the NFL, navigating the learning curve that comes with that, that's a lot of valuable practice time missed. It's one thing to know the playbook, right? You can know it inside and out, be engaged in the team meetings, answer any question that's thrown at you. But being able to apply it on the field when things are moving a million miles an hour is a completely different aspect of it. And that's the part through the first half of the season, to varying degrees, that Cooper had been missing, right? Because of the injuries, because of either the missed practice time, the limited practice time, whatever it might have been. But in recent weeks, the last month or so, he's been healthy. We've seen him get acclimated to the speed of the NFL game. You can see his comfort level within the defense, his responsibility, the responsibility of the players around him. You can see that growing, and that was shown in the confidence that the Packers coaching staff had in him, was shown in his playing time, right? Over the last month, he's been averaging almost 40 snaps per game, played a career high, I think 51 this past Sunday, against the Chicago Bears. And Brian Gutekunst said it best. He's a natural playmaker. We see him utilized as a blitzer. Jeff Hafley does an excellent job of putting him in positions to get after the quarterback, which is something he did at Texas A&M. And it's not just, hey, he's lined up at linebacker and he's shooting the gap trying to get to the quarterback. Like, Hafley is sending him on pressures from different parts of the field. He's disguising where Cooper is coming from, and you can do that. You have that ability because of just the speed he possesses. I mean, Cooper ran a 4.5 140 during the NFL Combine, which is ridiculously fast for the linebacker position. And when you have that type of speed at that position, that's versatility. What you can ask of Edgerrin Cooper greatly expands because of his ability to cover ground, his ability to make up space on an offensive player. And so from Hafley's perspective, as he's putting together a game plan, there's a lot of flexibility with that. Again, not just in how you utilize Cooper, because you can do so in a variety of ways with that speed, but in what you ask the players around him to do. Xavier McKinney talked about this after the Jaguars game, which was an excellent game from Edgerrin Cooper. I think he was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week after that game, had the forced fumble, had the ridiculous play where he's showing blitz, the ball snapped, and then makes a beeline backwards to catch up to wide receiver Christian Kirk to break up the pass. Excellent game from Cooper, but what McKinney was mentioning is, again, when you have that type of speed and athleticism at the linebacker position, not only affects, all right, how do we utilize Cooper, but it affects what you ask the defensive backs to do, the parts of the field, the responsibilities that you ask them to take on, because you know that in the middle, you have someone who can cover a lot of ground. So there's a trickle-down effect to, again, the game planning, the flexibility that Hafley has, in some instances, what the safeties do when you have a player of Cooper's caliber on the field. And of course, as we talked about, the Packers are going to be without him this week, and the 49ers are a dangerous team for the linebacker position. And I know they're going to be without Brock Purdy during Sunday's game. However, still in the backfield is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this is a team, even with Purdy under center, they want to run the ball. They're coming into this game ranked 7th in rush attempts per game. And so that's obviously a big part of their offense. And we all know that the playmaker that Christian McCaffrey is. I mean, over 1,700 yards last season, obviously with those numbers, one of the best or the best at picking up rushes of 10 yards, rushes of 15 yards. I know the first 2 games that he's been back this season, I think he's averaging around or just under 4 yards per carry. Not necessarily the version of Christian McCaffrey we've grown accustomed to seeing over the years, but certainly not someone you're going to take lightly. A very, very dangerous football player with his ability and with the ball in his hands, his elusiveness. But again, that's an element entirely of its own, right? Like just Christian McCaffrey getting the ball, running up the middle, it can be a problem for a defense. But when you take into account other factors, his versatility can be utilized in the passing game. Matt LaFleur talked about the different route concepts you can ask McCaffrey to run. You're not just dumping the ball off to him out of the backfield. The Niners can run him between the tackles. They can run him outside of the tackles. And then you take that element and you couple it with Kyle Shanahan's offense and just the unpredictability that comes with it, from the motions, the misdirection, the pre-snap eye candy that he utilizes, and you have a really, really difficult running back and offense as a whole to defend. When you have all those elements coupled together, and again, we're going to tie this back into the linebacker position, that's going to stress the defense, but the linebacker position specifically, it's going to stress them horizontally, right? There's going to be the side-to-side motions, the misdirections, stretching McCaffrey out, running him up the middle. And Javon Bullard said this early in the week. It only takes one misstep. You lean one way just a little bit too much, and this is an offense that can go 75 yards on you. So having a player like Cooper, who with that speed can, not that it's foolproof, but can erase, that space, who can, make up ground if there is a misstep or a missed assignment, whatever it might be, and hopefully, limit the 49ers, right? And in addition to that, the Niners in the passing game, again, I think obviously the running game is going to be a really, really important part of this, but in the passing game, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, with Brock Purdy under center, they really, really attack the middle of the field, the short to intermediate middle parts of the field. And again, who's there? It's your linebackers in coverage. So the playbook, it's going to be, what the 49ers ask of Brandon Allen isn't going to be obviously identical to what they ask of Brock Purdy, but the playbook's the playbook. We talked about this last week with the Bears, and there might be what the Niners do in certain situations, like a 2nd and 2 with Brandon Allen versus Brock Purdy can be different. Perhaps there's other parts of the playbook that are emphasized at the, with Allen versus Purdy, but the playbook's still a playbook. It's not as if there's been enough time to implement something different in that regard for Brandon Allen. So middle of the field passing game is going to be big. Obviously, a lot of that falls on the linebackers. Again, the 49ers' ability with Christian McCaffrey to utilize him in a variety of ways, the pre-snap motion, the misdirection, all that stuff. Really, really, really big stressors, horizontal stressors. Again, get these guys in space that can open up running lanes. Only takes half a step to open up an opportunity in the passing game, a passing lane to open up in the NFL. So Packers linebackers position is really going to be stressed in this game by this 49ers team. Now, without Edgerrin Cooper, who again played 51 snaps last week against the Bears, what are the Packers going to do at linebacker? I think we can safely say Quay Walker is going to be the middle linebacker. And even if Cooper was available, I know he's coming off some tough performances, Walker is. But, I mean, all signs point to him continuing to be their guy in the middle of that defense. So Quay Walker is going to be the middle linebacker. Obviously, when they're in their base 4-3 alignment and have 3 linebackers on the field, Isaiah McDuffie is going to be the strong side linebacker. Eric Wilson's going to be the weak side linebacker. And I think when they're in nickel, I think it's going to be a little mixing and matching with Wilson and McDuffie based on the situation. McDuffie's skill set is more so aligned with being helping a run stuffer. So I think in more of those obvious, more obvious running situations, so a 1st and 10, maybe a 2nd and 2 situation, a 3rd and 2, you're going to see Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie in as the 2 linebackers in nickel. On the flip side, if it's a more obvious passing down, a 2nd and long, a 3rd and long, I think you're going to see Eric Wilson on the field next to Quay Walker. So that's how I think they're going to handle a linebacker position without Edgerrin Cooper in the mix. But again, I think this is a pretty significant loss for Green Bay, especially just given this opponent, the 49ers, having Christian McCaffrey, obviously Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, the passing game, attacking the middle field, and just how this offense does such an excellent job of stretching a defense horizontally, making them cover a lot of ground, opening up space for their playmakers to take advantage of. So Cooper, big loss for the Packers in this one. All right, lastly, let's talk about the Packers and their situational football, specifically 3rd downs and in the red zone, which is given this offense fits throughout the course of the season, and we saw it last week against the Chicago Bears. But coming into this game, Packers ranked 22nd in 3rd down offense and 27th in red zone success rate this season. Against the Bears, they were 1 for 5 on 3rd downs. They were 3 for 5 in the red zone, which is improvement. Absolutely. I mean, that's a 60% success rate compared to their season average of 48%. However, those 2 red zone misses, for lack of a better term, wasn't just not getting it in the end zone and leaving with field goals. They didn't leave with any points. I mean, that game takes on an incredibly different dynamic at the end if it's 26-19 and the Bears are moving down the field versus 20-19. So again, obviously a lot of areas or a lot of aspects within the red zone, within the 3rd down, that this Packers team absolutely has to improve upon. And when you're having these struggles for really the entire season at this point, again, football's such a nuanced game. It's never one thing. Obviously, there's factors that play bigger roles than others. But when you're struggling over the course of a season in a specific area, it's a number of things. And one of them, we've talked about on here before, it's the self-inflicted errors made by this Green Bay Packers team. It's penalties, it's drop passes, it's off-target throws, and just a trickle-down effect from that. I mean, if you're, a penalty on 1st down puts you at 1st and 15, in those predictable, long, down and distance situations, the defense has the advantage at that point. If you're in a 2nd and 12, a 2nd and 8, 3rd and 8, whatever it might be, defenses aren't too concerned about you running the ball in those situations. So what are they doing? The pass rush is pinning its ears back because they're expecting a pass. The offense is more one-dimensional, which is what you always want to avoid in football, predictable, knowing that a passing play is coming, and particularly when you get to 3rd down. If it's 3rd and 8, I mean, there's only so many routes that you can run in those situations that are going to get you behind the sticks, right? So the defense now has the advantage in coverage as well. It's just a tough way to live in the NFL overall when you're regularly in long down and distance situations, even if you do have a potent offense like the Green Bay Packers do. And we saw on Sunday, again, Jordan Love was 13 for 17, averaged over 15 yards per pass attempt. The offense as a whole averaged 8.5 yards per play in that game. For some context, I believe the Ravens lead the NFL in that category this season at 7 yards per play. They were generating big plays. They were moving the ball on only 6 possessions in that entire game, excluding the kneel down before halftime. 5 of them went to the red zone. Packers actually had a pretty efficient offensive game against Chicago, but a lot of that can be wiped out, erased because of poor situational football, going 1 for 5 on 3rd down, leaving the red zone without any points on 2 occasions. And so again, those struggles or those self-inflicted mistakes, penalties, drop passes, off-target throws, whatever it might be, a huge factor in this, because putting yourself behind the sticks in those predictable passing situations, like I said, it's a tough way for any offense to live in the NFL. But in addition to that, like I said, there's other factors. There's the execution, there's the play calling, there's making sure your best players are on the football field in those critical moments. And that drive that ended with the Jordan Love interception, that red zone sequence, it's, again, out of the entire season, out of all the red zone plays, possessions that the Packers have had, it's one drive. But I felt like that possession really encapsulates what the Packers have been up against this season, the issues that they've run into this season. They're in a second one inside the red zone. All of a sudden there's a penalty. I think there's a legal man, offensive lineman downfield. All right, so now you go from being in 2nd and 1, there's a penalty, to 2nd and 6. Completely changes the dynamic of that possession, the play calling on that play. You go from having the advantage to, all right, now the defense has the advantage to a degree. From there, Packers try to get the ball to Jaden Reed on a running play. Matt LaFleur talked about on Monday. There's a missed block. Play never has a chance of getting going. So you have a penalty. Next play, you have poor execution, and now all of a sudden you're in a 3rd and long situation. And I think the kind of the cherry on top of that possession was Christian Watson wasn't on the field. He had the 48-yard completion on that possession to put the Packers in the red zone, but on those early downs, he was on the sidelines. You want your best players on the field in those critical situations. And I think magnifying the situation was, without Watson out there, it was Bo Melton and Malik Heath, who, that tips your hat, right, to the defense that there's probably a running play that's coming. So I think just the entire sequence, structure, from execution to play call to what Matt LaFleur was asking of his guys, I think everything could have been so much better. And then, of course, it was ended with the Jordan Love interception. So again, that's one example out of a season long, sample size. But all the issues that we talk about, all the issues that we've seen pop up over and over again, all happen to kind of rear its ugly head on that one possession. So what do the Packers, what do they have to do differently moving forward? One, execution, play calling, putting your best players on the field, not getting in your own way with the penalties, the drop passes, all of that. And again, obviously it's super easy to sit here and say that. They know this, right? But obviously the fix isn't as easy as, well, just don't get called for a penalty, or make sure your best players on the field, because they've been doing that too. So the challenge here is far greater than anything I can sit here and point out, because we're now 11 weeks going on week 12 into the NFL season, and these issues are still popping up. Now, having said that, is there the potential this week against the 49ers to get back on track? Because while the Packers offense has struggled on 3rd downs and in the red zone, 49ers defense has as well. 49ers ranked 25th in 3rd down defense this season. They ranked 23rd in red zone defense this season, and obviously a massive loss for them. They're not going to have Nick Bosa. According to ESPN, the 49ers team pressure rate when Bosa's on the field is 33%. When he's not on the field this season, it's 18%. And that 18%, if that was their pressure rate for the entire season, that would be the lowest mark in football. So obviously a massive difference, and we know this. We don't need numbers to tell us the impact that Nick Bosa has, and LaFleur talked about it this week. There are play calls that when he's on the field, you won't touch because of his ability to just absolutely wreck a play. So again, you have a defense that's already been susceptible in these key situations without a massive game wrecker on the field in this game as well. And you have to wonder, all right, is there an opportunity for this Packers team to get on track in these 3rd downs, in these red zone situations? And again, we can look at the opponent, we can look at the opportunity that's potentially there, and obviously that's a factor, right? What your opponent does, how they play, the adjustments they make, how they respond to what you're doing, all those are factors in determining the outcome on a specific play. But for the reasons mentioned, self-inflicted mistakes, the execution, getting your best players on the field, all of that, it comes from the Packers, right? That's where the improvement has to start. Okay, again, your opponent obviously has an impact on how the play turns out, but the improvement is going to have to start with the Packers being better in these areas. And again, I think getting the run game going, especially in the red zone, we've talked about before, is a really important element to red zone success. That's just innately a more difficult part of the field to throw the ball in. Think about it. You're in a confined space with less room to operate. There's more defenders in this space because you can't stretch them vertically. So running the ball inside the red zone is going to be an important part of it. And we saw the Packers try to do that against the Bears. And again, Matt LaFleur said when a defense comes out and cover 2 in the red zone, like if you can't run the ball in that situation, it's going to be really difficult for the offense because that cover 2 defensive scheme is going to be it's innately more susceptible to the run. There's opportunities between the tackles. So if you're struggling in that part of the field where it's already more difficult to pass the ball against a defense that's susceptible to the run game, again, it comes down to execution at that point. And while the Bears were utilizing that cover 2, the Packers saw the opportunity to run the ball, but they just couldn't get it done, again, from an execution standpoint. So it's a little bit of everything for this Packers team, but this week potentially presents them with the opportunity in these key situations to get on track. And when we talk about season long, peaking at the right time, playing your best football come the postseason, they have to get better in this area. I mean, Brian Gutekunst talked about it during the bye week when he was meeting with us. The best teams at the end in the playoffs at the end of the year, they're really good in third down in the red zone, and that's an area where obviously the Packers have some work to do. If you made it to this point, you might as well hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do greatly appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. And like I say, you can find all my work over at ESPNlacrosse.com. Multiple articles up each day. Download the 1055 ESPN Lacrosse app. But until next time, friends, take care.